SEGA Bits presents SEGA Talk, a podcast talking all things SEGA! With your hosts, George and Barry.
Look, it's a giant talking egg. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the master here. So what?
Yep. Hello and welcome to SEGA News Bits. Hello and welcome to SEGA Talk number 17. I'm Barry, with me is George.
Hello, everybody.
And on this very special episode, we are going to be covering a Sega Saturn. Is it a classic? It's I'd say it's
a hidden gem.
A hidden gem. A gem you can. It's an expensive gem, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And that's Burning Rangers. Now, if you are new to Sega Talk, this is what we do. We basically take a Sega game from any point in history. It could be any game, but we're picking ones that are notable. So you probably won't see like NFL 2K2 anytime soon, but you never know. And we go through the development history, our memories of it, the gameplay, how it impacted games at the time, and share people's memories at the end. And if you like this stuff, you can support us on Patreon. It is the only way that we benefit at all monetarily from what we're doing. And so it really means a lot to us. It keeps us going. It keeps us on schedule. And
Google has a anti-Sega propaganda tool that has demonetized this channel. You need to rally.
Yeah. But should we dive right into it?
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it, because this is Sega Talk, man. All right, so Burning Rangers was released in 1998 to the Sega Saturn. Sonic Team were the developer behind it, and the game was a 3D action game in which the player takes the role of a new recruit to a team of futuristic firefighters. The game was directed by Naoto Oshima and produced by Yuji Naka, and these two men are probably most notably known for creating Sonic the Hedgehog. And the game was Sonic Team's second non-Sonic title for the Sega Saturn, and also their last game before the Sega Dreamcast launched just 10 months later in Japan with the release of Sonic Adventure. So, let's talk about that. So what are your first memories of Burning Rangers, and did you play the game on release?
I did not play the game on release. I think the main issue with this game was that it wasn't sponsored the way that other games were. It kind of reminds me of Comic Zone or Vector Man, where it came out in the late lifespan of the Saturn. It's crazy to think that 2 years was the late lifespan of the Saturn.
Wow.
But yeah, like Nights, they had kiosks everywhere. I remember the posters. I remember they had ads for it. I remember that game, and I remember playing that game and being mind blowing. And I really love the controls, and I love that they did these like 1.5D. This game was totally different. I didn't play when it came out. I don't remember ads. Maybe magazine ads. Vaguely, but I was like, Power Rangers? Is this like a Power Rangers game? Because it said Rangers on it. That's the only thing I could think of at the time. So yeah, the first time I played it was probably like in the early 2000s when, when you make friends that have the same hobbies as you, video game nerds.
Right.
In the early 2000s when Sonic Adventure was coming out, I started really getting into Sonic again because he was kind of dead for 5 years, and when you're a kid, those 5 years go on forever. So I went back, played this game, and I was impressed that the Sega Saturn could do 3D like this, but compared to the PlayStation 1, it definitely did not age as well as Nights.
Yeah.
I think Nights aged better because of the limitations they put on the movement. The controls on this one are way different. I remember it was like really shocking to try to get into it because, when this game came out, there wasn't that many 3D games. They probably started working on this when the Mario 64 was probably not even out yet. So, or I don't know. What do you think about it? And did you play it on release date?
So Burning Rangers, of course, it came so late in the lifespan that it was one of those games that is super rare, super hard to come by. And I don't think it was marketed all that much. You mentioned you didn't see ads. I actually am looking at an ad right now. I looked it up online while you were speaking, and it's it's a fireman laying in a pool, like a kid's pool, like cooling off, and a kid's looking at him, and it's taking up probably 90% of the page, and it says Burning Rangers Sega hard stuff. I don't know what that means. And the copy. So and then there's 4 very very tiny like postage stamp sized screenshots and the cover art in the corner, and it doesn't do the game any justice. It's using a fireman, like a contemporary fireman, and
I mean, do you remember the ad for Knights? I think this is kind of goes with the trend that made the Saturn fail with bad advertisement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the copy on it too, it doesn't really make sense to me. It says, cozy up to the blistering hellfire of Burning Rangers, the phenomenal new game from Yuji Naka, creator of Sonic and Knights. Did Yuji Naka create Knights? I thought that was... I mean, Iizuka worked on that a lot. That was like his baby.
Yeah, but you know how it goes.
Yeah. And so it says, in this 3D Scorcher, you're a 1 jetpack, 1 concussion gun techno ranger battling unpredictable firestorms. Victims lie everywhere. Ooh, that sounds... To save them, you'll have to rocket your way around fire cyclones, firewalls, and exploding fuel tanks. Replays unlock new doors and secret areas, but only escalates the shake and bake. Ashes to ashes, you're dust. That's weird. That's badly written.
Yeah.
And it's on the bottom. It's so bad.
It's so funny because the game is so like nice and peaceful, and the whole point of it is like not violence, but it's like like the way they describe it is the way you describe like a brawl or like gladiator fights.
Yeah. It's like talking about victims lying everywhere. Like if they're victims to the fire, they're dead.
And it's also funny because this is like this is obviously in the middle of the Attitude Era where everything in America had an attitude to it, you know.
Oh, absolutely.
WWE.
Absolutely. Like, I'm sure all the ads were having, like, Matrix-style music and crap, you know, like, really pushing that hardcore stuff. But I guess I didn't answer the question. I didn't play the game on release. However, I did buy Burning Rangers online in, like, maybe February of 1999. And I used to think that was actually, like a long time after release, but it wasn't. Like, that's me buying the game new, and I actually have it here. So this is my copy of the game that I've had since 1999, and I remember this because I bought it from the website SegaParts.com. Do you remember that site?
Yeah, I used to order cords there. It was an official site? Is that the one that it was?
Yeah.
Was Sega Parts the official one?
It was an official site that provided like arcade supplies, but at the time it also sold games and consoles. So, and I actually visited the company that used to be Sega Parts. They are out near, in the suburbs of Chicago, and now they are a third-party, like, arcade machine provider, and I don't think they have an official connection to Sega now, but they act as Sega's kind of like Midwest dealer. And so I'm pretty sure that this copy of this game probably came from them. And I remember it was probably about $30 or $40, so it was marked down a little bit from full price, but it still was like on par with buying a new game then. And I remember it because I was playing it at the time the Dreamcast was going to release, and I was like, this game's a little rough, but I see what it's going for, and if the Dreamcast can like do this kind of gameplay, it's going to be really awesome. Like if the Dreamcast can take Burning Rangers and bring it to like perfection, then we're really looking at... And I didn't play the game that much until the Dreamcast release, so when I went back and played this, I was really comparing Burning Rangers to like Sonic Adventure, and I was like, this game's now kind of rough. And I didn't play it a lot for a long time until probably I got into, you know, writing about Saturn and Dreamcast like little under 10 years ago, and I love the game, and we'll get into more of that, but it's a really interesting game, which sounds like a negative, but it's interesting, and we'll get into that. So this game
wait, before we talk about that, you were talking about Sega Parts. You know where I remember them from, and I don't know if you remember this, but 1-800 Sega USA or USA Sega, they used to have that number. I ordered parts from there, and they went through Sega Parts. That's all. That's why I remember them. But we could do an episode maybe on the number. But it's funny because I get tweeted about that a lot. I don't know why. People remember the 1-800 number. But go on. Sorry for interrupting.
Well, in Sega Parts, actually, they shut down, I think, like in the last 6 months, and now it's SegaArcade.us.com, and it's where you can buy you can still buy things from them, but yeah, it's store.playatamusements.com now, and you can buy steering wheels and paddle shifters and manuals. So it's still the same kind of site, but like I said, it's a third party. It's not official Sega. It's like a distributor for them. But yeah, so let's get into this development. So development began in November of 1996, just after Christmas Night's released. And Yuji Naka wanted to create a game that had you saving people rather than killing them. And so they selected firefighters because the team thought that they were easily identified with heroism. And it's worth noting that Sega AM1 released Brave Firefighters to arcades in 1999. So there definitely was like a fireman thing going on internally at Sega. And you actually you looked into some other fireman games too. Are we going to talk about those now, or is that...
I actually rather not talk about the other game. I'd rather just keep it straight. I was actually going to talk about them and play them last night. I just didn't have time. There's this one... I was trying to look for this Japanese game that like reminded me that like there's like this little craze, right, in the 90s where like Japanese developers will just take aspects of America and make a whole game, like virtual cops, Daytona USA, and then this. So it goes in trend with the moment.
Yeah. So I guess I'd ask then, what are your thoughts on this concept of gameplay, and can you think of any other games, not even fireman games, that focus on saving rather than defeating or killing?
Whew, that's a good one. I mean, Knights, but like that's really just beating the clock, right? So I'm trying to think at Shinobi, but you also kill enemies, right?
Yeah.
Michael Jackson, Moonwalk. Did he kill those guys? They just jumped off screen, right?
Yeah, he kicks them off screen, but he saves children. That's true.
Yeah, and I mean, it's kind of aged kind of badly talking about Michael Jackson, but that's a Shinobi type game, right?
Yeah.
I really can't think of any. Can you? You probably can. There's probably arcade games like, I don't know, Virtual Cop, but then I guess
you're shooting people again. See, it is difficult. Now, I don't think that they were revolutionary in this concept, because when I was looking at existing fireman games, there was like one, I think on the Super Nintendo, where it said you put out flames and you rescue victims. So that sounds like this. So I don't think Burning Rangers was revolutionary in that concept, but it was probably one of the early 3D games to really have a lot of free movement, but also to do this saving sort of scenario. And yeah, when you think about it, you think of games that have people being saved, but there's typically enemies that you're killing who have either kidnapped them or are trying to attack them. And Burning Rangers does have enemies, so it's not like they don't exist, but they find clever ways to make them not like evil. They're more like hazards. And so I think it's a novel concept. I don't think it's anything revolutionary, though. I don't want to. I'm a huge Sega fan, but I don't want to give them that much credit. But it's I guess it's unique. It's unique enough.
I will say for the Sega Saturn, it's really unique, and in the fact that it's one of the only Sega Saturn games that try to do a 3D platforming thing.
Yeah.
I know they did it with like Sonic Jam, but only the sub menus. So I can't really think of any other ones. I think there's like a Japanese mech game that also kind of surprised me with it trying to be 3D like that. Mm-hmm. But this is like the only game that anybody really tried to do on the Saturn, and I think Sonic Team was really working hard on this engine to sell the Saturn, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's just talk a little bit about the characters. So, typically on Sega Talk, we kind of assume what we're talking about a little bit. Like Sonic the Hedgehog, we're not going to get deep in the weeds on gameplay and who the characters are. But I feel like with Burning Rangers, it's a game a lot of people know about, but very few people have actually played. And so let's talk about the storyline here. So the game is actually set in a futuristic society in which fire is one of the few major hazards remaining. And the Burning Rangers are an elite group of firefighters who have formed to help cope with such emergencies. The core members of the team are Chris Parton, Big Landman, and Lead Phoenix, also known as Reed. as well as 2 new recruits, Sho Abamane and a woman named Tillis. And the latter 2 are the only playable characters initially, although you can play the others through a password feature. And so, the setting and art style, it's unlike anything Sonic Team had done at the time. And so I was wondering, what's your opinion on the game's characters, setting, and visual style? Do you think it stands up to the likes of Sonic, Knights, and Rystar?
Yeah, it does. Okay, so let's talk about the obvious here, right? This is the first one to have like a futuristic Phantasy Star Online-ish. Because, I mean, I played Phantasy Star Online before I played this, so that was the first thing it reminded me of. I really like the anime style, and yes, it was really jarring if you were a Sonic Team fan at the time, where they would do like mascot games and then all of a sudden an anime game.
Yeah.
That's very, very anime, especially mid-90s anime. And it even translated into the art style where they had the sketches of the characters. I really liked that, actually, because it was... at the time, I was really a big anime nerd. I think everybody in the early 2000s was into anime, right?
Right,
It was the rise of Pokemon and the rise of Dragon Ball Z and Toonami. So, obviously, right up my alley at the time, and I really liked it. Mm-hmm. You?
Yeah, I thought it was different from anything Sonic Team really did, though I would say the character art kind of reminded me of the kids in Knights. It's just that these are adults, so they're taller, they're a little more developed. But yeah, I'm looking through the manual here, actually, and there isn't a lot of artwork showcased in the American manual. Like, there's the, like you can see here, there's the character profiles, but they're black and white, they're kind of small. So they weren't really pushing that anime style, despite
it's
that.
Kind of a trend.
Yeah, and so I feel like if this game came out maybe a year later, they really would have pushed it like they did with Phantasy Star Online and a lot of the other games where they seemed a little prouder of the fact that it was a Japanese game with a unique art style.
And that really goes to show you the difference of, like, at the time, Sega from Sega Saturn, the guys that were advertising for that, and the guys that were advertising for Sega Dreamcast. I feel like Sega Dreamcast and the Sega Genesis had the best marketing teams of Sega's history.
Yeah.
And then, like, Sega Saturn's the worst. So that's
bad.
why they didn't push it, obviously.
Yeah, and then looking forward, and you mentioned this, Burning Rangers has much more in common visually with Phantasy Star Online. So I'm wondering, what sort of visual similarities did you notice, both in the gameplay and in the character designs?
So the suits, the way they use the white, the blue, and the way they color coordinated, sort of, I think they did it way better in Phantasy Star Online. I think the art style is a lot... I like the anime aesthetic. It's more unique. This one looks like a... anime you would have watched like late night on a cable channel when they were showing like Ghost in the Shell and movies like that. So I think Phantasy Star Online kind of had its own more unique look, but this one has like you can see the suits and stuff and the way the 3D looks, like the way you move the camera and stuff kind of reminded me a lot of Phantasy Star Online. You could tell this is like the building blocks to what they wanted to make.
Oh, absolutely. The whole corridor system and those opening doors and even the malfunctioning robots was straight out of, what was it, Mines? I think the Mines level.
Yeah.
Phantasy Star. Like, you play Phantasy Star Online and then you play this and you immediately see so many similarities. It's got to be, this is definitely the precursor to that, in my opinion. Though it is kind of surprising where you can jump and fly, which is kind of something I wish I could have done in Phantasy Star Online. But I guess they had to limit things just because of the online gameplay. But
it would be interesting if they ever go back and do a new Phantasy Star Online, if they added a chatting feature or a hovering system thing.
That would be cool. I know you can. I think you can jump in PSO2, but I don't know about hovering or like flying.
Yeah,
it's interesting. But yeah, the characters in the game, they were designed by Hiroyuki Ochi, and Yuji Naka has stated in interviews that Sonic Team wanted the silhouette of the Burning Ranger to resemble a angel, and so their jetpacks were supposed to look like angel wings. And you can kind of see that, like on the box art here, this guy who's flying over the logo, he's got these like little jets, and they look like that. Did you catch that in the design?
No, I did not catch that at all. I think maybe other people did, but sometimes when I play games, I'm just like into the gameplay. I'm looking at other stuff like the artwork, and people are like, "Did you notice this?" I'm like, "No, I didn't notice that," and I beat the game, so I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't notice it at first, but then when I saw that there was a song titled "Angels with Burning Hearts," I started to make that connection. And I think at the time too, I was playing Virtual on Oratorio Tangram, and I was seeing that a few of those characters, they would look like either angels or they would look like hostesses. So they were using these like robotic parts to emulate something else. And so I mean, it's kind of beating it over the head with being like firefighters are angels. Like, yeah, we get it. They're saviors. It's pretty obvious. And
this is when like Sonic Team was really deep, though. I mean, they had the whole nights where they were talking about dreams and philosophy with dreams and how it affects people. And now this one with rescuing angels.
Yeah, they wanted to really. I guess they wanted to move away from Sonic. They were going to move away like hard. So they were like,
isn't it crazy how much they tried to avoid Sonic during the Saturn era, but they wanted the Saturn to be successful at the same time?
It's I mean, I wouldn't change anything because I really love the games that Sonic Team did make, but if I was working at SEGA, I would be like, guys, can we make one Sonic game? That would be really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, so let's talk a bit about the gameplay. This is going to take up probably a bulk of the show just because, like I said, a lot of people know about the game, but they haven't played it. They might have watched streams. They might have attempted to play an import copy, which I wouldn't recommend. I mean, it's nice to own, just to say you have some version of Burning Rangers, but we'll get into why you probably should play your native language when you play this game. And so when the game starts, you select Show or Tillis, and then you're thrown into a tutorial level. And then from there you go through each level, and the goal is to rescue survivors, extinguish fires, and then there's a boss at the end of each stage. But of course, it's always some clever twist where it's like a malfunctioning robot or something like that. Like, it's never some guy going, "I started the fire, Burning Rangers." Though thinking about that would be kind of fun. And you are rewarded a bonus points for completing the level quickly, which is a contrast to how Nights played out, and it's more in line with the Sonic the Hedgehog games. So the more time you take, the worse the fire gets, and then there's a meter that moves up in 20% increments until it hits 100, making it almost impossible to proceed, basically meaning it's like a game over. So which game did you think was more successful in using the timer, Nights or Burning Rangers?
Okay, so Burning Rangers did it fast, like you said, and I really liked I think the idea of Nights, like, you have to wait for the time and like know the level to do the laps, and the more laps you do and whatever you do, I think that makes the game more replayable because it kind of reminds me of these like new what do they call them, like these hard games where you level up your character and then you die, but like I feel like every time I come back I notice something I could do differently to like increase my score.
Right.
And you get that rush to try to get right back in the last second to get the highest score possible. I like all that kind of stuff. I think it's pretty cool. So I thought it was a cool break from Sonic. This one, I mean, I like it. It's a fine game, but I just don't think it's as good as Nights. That's all.
That's interesting. Yeah. I guess I was going to say that Burning Rangers, it makes more sense when you're a first-time player than Nights does.
Yes. Yeah, it does. Definitely does.
Because I'm sure we've talked about this when we covered Nights on Sega Talk, but Nights, it's such a great game, but I don't think they did a good job explaining the gameplay to people. I think the game really needed to have some sort of system where it's like you're getting close to the checkpoint, but it'll tell you like, keep collecting gems, you have another minute, like don't go back, keep going.
Yeah.
Because I would play the game, and when the first time I played it was like D rank, C rank, and I was like, I'm going as fast as I can. I think I'm doing a great job. I don't know what the hell's going on. And then I learned, of course, that you have to keep going and run the clock down and get there at the last second. Whereas with Burning Rangers or even Sonic, I guess with Sonic, it doesn't punish you as much, but you do get a time bonus. But Burning Rangers, it's like the faster you are, they're like, way to go. So it's yeah.
I feel like the reason they did this because the Sega Saturn at that moment was like a Genesis in Japan of arcades because of Street Fighter 2, and they're still living off of Virtua Fighter. That almost every game on the Saturn just felt a little like they wanted to go way more hardcore, right? Like they were really pandering to the Japanese audience because they're the only ones buying the system and the games.
Right.
So all these games became very arcade-like, and then when they went to Dreamcast, you could tell they put more thought into a worldwide market where like online games, like Phantasy Star Online, another Sonic game, you know what I mean, football games, and you know. But yeah, so I'm not surprised. And for the lap thing, I agree with you 100%. Knights did not explain it at all, and they had to do a better job. And I bet you 99% of people that played the game back then played it exactly like Sonic, like you, and they didn't understand what they did wrong. So yeah.
Yeah, it needed some sort of visual cues or some sort of like audio playing saying keep going, you're doing great. Yeah. But yeah, so let's see what next are we going to talk about. Oh, this is exciting. So your shields and teleporting survivors are reliant on crystals, which you collect as you progress and put out fires. So in this sense, Sonic rules apply. If you get damaged, you drop crystals, and another hit means an instant death. And your weapons, or I guess you could call them like tools, consist of a pulse for small flames and a laser blast for big flames, enemies, and bosses. And you also encounter explosions and collapsing scenery. So, despite the no-killing concept, the game ended up having enemies, which were robots gone haywire from the fires. Do you see these as enemies or just another danger caused by a disaster?
I mean, let's be honest, they are enemies. But I guess if you guys want to be technical, they are disasters caused by fire. But like, I could just make a villain that's like, my daughter died in the fire and these burning rangers never rescued her. Yeah. Now you guys are dead, and then you have to shoot them and kill them. So, I mean, I understand they were trying to make a kid-friendly game or a non-violent game, which I'm cool with, but isn't this kind of a theme running with Sonic Team with Knights in this game where they were very no-kill?
Yeah, like the Nightmarens weren't they like not good real? Dreams turned bad?
Yeah. So it's like a running theme here, I guess. And I guess they had to take a break in Phantasy Star Online where you kill a whole planet of animals.
Yeah, that's true. The Boomas, and they go...
And they went edgy with Sonic the Adventure 2. But yeah,
that's true.
It's interesting, but I guess you could say that, but you always have to have enemies in games.
Yeah.
A lot of people try to do this thing. I think now games, this kind of like idea of a peaceful game is a really, really big concept right now with new gamers. Like there's The Witness, I think this game is called. There's Undertale where you could play it as pacifist mode, and they literally like promote the game as a pacifist, the first pacifist RPG. So it's interesting that Sonic Team was like basically doing this. So was like I guess Mario technically, but you do fight Goombas and stuff and do beat them, and you do punch Yoshi in the back of the head. So there's some violence there.
Yeah. So but I'd agree. Yeah, like the villains in this, the enemies in this game, they are enemies. I guess the thing is though, they don't have any intent. They're not intentionally being bad. They're not starting the fire. They're just robots gone haywire. Yeah, victims. You know, like it's like a house is on fire and there's exposed electrical wires. Are you going to say, oh, those exposed electrical wires are enemies? Who's your greatest enemy? Like a malfunctioning robot. So. And
I guess you have to have some sort of like concept of being a villain or doing something evil to be a villain.
Yeah. Like I don't believe the game has a guy who's like, well, the fires were all me.
I started them all.
Yeah, and there is an actual like plot to the game and ending. I don't want to spoil it here because I feel like that's the one thing that we're gonna let the game keep so that you can go in and play it. But there's like a woman and she's Something's wrong with her. I don't know. But the game is perhaps most notably, famously known for its method of navigation. So rather than a map, players use voice navigation from off-screen team members. And at the time, this was very unique, and it's a cool way for the game to give you an in-game team feel, despite the game itself being a single-player experience. And this meant that the game was difficult for non-Japanese language speakers who want to import, which meant you really had to play the Western release to actually use this method of navigation. Have you attempted playing the import version of this game?
Nope. I've never thought about even importing the game. I don't own the game, so I guess we could talk about that. I mean, we'll talk about that later because I know it's part of the notes. But so no, I never played a Japanese game. I burnt the game before, and I borrowed a copy of the game back in the day, right? So I've never owned the game, so I just never really wanted to play the Japanese game. But now that you tell me, I'm like, yeah, it wouldn't be playable. So I mean, it makes sense. Did you play the Japanese game, and how far did you get?
No, I never did, actually. I'm surprised I didn't, but I guess it's because I bought this so soon. Otherwise, I probably would have imported it. I've read a lot of people saying, it's worth doing a walkthrough, but I think a walkthrough would ruin the game because it would be like you'd read, turn left, turn right. It's just, it kills the whole sense of discovery and of navigating through these, flame-filled corridors.
I do know that some of the tracks are different in the soundtrack, but I mean, I don't know if there's any bosses or anything that they changed. I'm assuming no.
I think no, but yeah, I think the lyrics for the music was in Japanese, so there was that. But another thing is that while you were after your first playthrough, you could go back through the game, and it was a random generator that mixes up the order of corridors. So basically, there were, I think someone did the math, so it's 3,125 unique maps. And because of this random nature, the import version is largely unplayable in this mode because you're completely lost. You can't rely on a walkthrough. You're just going to be going around dying and guessing. Unless you maybe learn what right and left and all the, learn rudimentary Japanese. But
to be honest with you, with the prices of the US and PAL version, you're probably better off just learning Japanese.
It's true. You could probably, for the amount that you spend on this game, you could probably take an online class in Japanese direction finding. But usually on this show we discuss the game's music. And Burning Rangers is unique because it's large. I know the theme song is super popular.
Yes, very popular.
Very, very popular. But the game itself does not have a lot of music. In fact, the Burning Rangers soundtrack, let's see, who worked on this? So we've got, of course, the theme song with Mitsuyoshi working on that. And, from Daytona. And it's a fantastic song. But you look at the rest of the soundtrack, and it's really anything from 30 seconds to a minute long, and these are probably incidental sounds. These might be from cutscenes. And it's 25 tracks, and it's a 56-minute long soundtrack. And I'm looking here, most of the stuff is remixes, English versions, so
Japanese versions,
and Japanese versions, yeah. So it's a memorable soundtrack in the beginning. But after that, it's a very quiet game. And the reasoning for this, of course, is that you are meant to be going through and listening to the navigation, listening for sound effects and audio cues for explosions. And in turn, it makes it a very, in my opinion, it makes it a very engrossing experience. It feels, especially if you're wearing headphones, you kind of feel like you're there. Did you think this enhanced the game's tension, or do you think it actually made it kind of boring?
I thought it kind of made it kind of boring, because I actually remember when I played the game, I was thinking to myself, man, they must have ran out of budget or got rushed that they didn't finish the music in this game or fill it out. Because, one of the first things you think of when you play a Sonic Team game is how much effort and time and whatever they put into the soundtrack.
Yeah.
And like you said, right when you start up, it's all upbeat lyrics. it's epic. You get into and it's like not really that much music going on. So that was really jarring.
Yeah.
But it's also like the soundtrack. I do like the. I guess I don't know what would you call the style of music, like bubblegum pop. Like I don't know, like when Saturn was going on, like they just went all in on this style. So it was like Knights had it where they had like these like vocal tracks where they're more I don't know what even this would even be called. What would you call Burning Ranger's soundtrack?
It's almost like jazzy, upbeat jazzy pop with a little bit of rap.
Yes.
Because it's like, who's the one for you to count on?
Yeah.
But then it's like, which is total like jazz riffing, like so
it's really cool. It's really cool the tracks they did do like that. Which is like I Just Smile is another one that's has lyrics I think, but it's just not. I don't know. Like I don't think it worked. I think they should have just put a soundtrack. I don't know. I think they're just trying to be a little edgy there because I really like Nights because the music is really memorable and I think it makes the levels more memorable. Mm-hmm. This one I think is a little less memorable during gameplay moments because of that, in my opinion. Yeah. What do you think?
No, I think the game would have had to have been made the way it was made because if you're going through it with this music blaring and there's fires and there's audio cues for when there's going to be an explosion and it would just be too much.
I can see that, yeah.
At the same time, I think maybe what they could have done is added a mode where it was like music mode so that you could have in-game music if you started to play through the game enough and you didn't need to keep hearing this. But no, I understand why people would find it boring. I thought it was like if you're playing it late at night wearing headphones, it's a cool experience, but it gets a little quiet.
You are a huge Burning Rangers fan, huh? I mean, I'm just surprised. I thought it was just an okay game. I thought maybe I wouldn't say the weakest thing, but it's the most experimental thing that I feel like Sonic Team's ever done. Because I feel like even Sonic, the first 3 games kind of already had the structure of a platformer made. And this one, it feels like they went from scratch and how to make a 3D game. That's what it felt like to me.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't want to sound like a Burning Rangers super fan or anything. I do think the game's flawed. I think the camera's really bad. I think there is quite a bit of a learning curve in terms of how to fight the fires and how to keep the percentage down so you don't get hurt. And I guess the reason why I like the game so much is it's very rare to find a fully 3D platformer on the Saturn that's exclusive, and this is one of them. And I think
it is exclusive.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because you're playing a 3D Sonic Team game, and I know Knights was that, but Knights was more 2.5D, and the 3D sequences were kind of pretty light. Like you were getting attacked almost instantly when you were running around as the kids. Yeah. So it's cool to play it as a moment in Sonic Team's development history as both a Sonic fan and as a Phantasy Star Online fan, but I do think it's not Sonic Team's best effort. I like it more than Billy Hatcher. Yeah, and I like it more than some of the lighter games like Choo Choo Rocket. I can't really compare the two. One's a puzzle game, but if I had to choose between the two, I'd maybe say this game's a little better just because there's a lot more going on in it.
Yeah,
but,
there is.
Samba de Amigo I think is a better game than Burning Rangers though, and we'll talk a little bit about that soon. But I wanted to talk about Burning Rangers. It was released at the end of the Saturn's lifespan, making it a very, very rare game. And I was actually surprised when I looked up the prices before writing these notes. Current eBay listings for the US version were not even appearing. When I was searching, it was only the PAL versions, and the PAL copies are selling for $300 or more complete.
Wow.
What's your thought about that?
I told you, you told me you posted your list of retro games you have. And I was like, you had 52. Am I right? I don't want to misrepresent you.
Yeah, I have about 50 Saturn games.
Okay. And I was telling you, if those are all U.S. games, you could basically run for president just on the interest you'll be making on the games in the future. Because, I mean, they just got so rare. Like, it feels like it was crazy. Because I remember when I was younger, you could go to, like, a yard sale and people were like, please get rid of these old games. We don't want none of it. I don't know what a Sega is anymore. Just get rid of it.
Yeah.
And now it's like everybody wants it. Everybody's going online. We get people on our Discord telling us, I just bought this game for full price, and it's insane to me that, there's a market of people actually paying this stuff. But it is a good game. I don't like paying more than it cost when it came out. It really irks me. Very rarely do I do it. And I'm still looking for a deal on Burning Rangers, but one day I'll find it, and I'll brag.
Yeah, this game, it really shot up in price. I feel like at the time when I was like putting my collection back together and I was looking it up, I feel like this game was maybe $150, and that's like 10 years ago. Now it's $300, $350, and it's not worth it, in my opinion. I feel like an epic RPG with multiple discs is much more worthy of that price point because you're paying for like hours and hours of gameplay. But like this thing, like this game right here is worth more than going out and buying a Nintendo Switch right now, which can play hundreds of games. So would you rather spend $350 just to play Burning Rangers, or would you rather spend $350 on like a PlayStation 4?
And retro people that just play retro games would probably say, I value having a game because they feel like in the future they'll go up in price, right? So in the end of the day, they really want it, they're going to have to pay for it. Maybe.
That's true.
So I think some games will drop in price. I think this one will not, because the US version just had limited run copies because of the way Sega of America was. They just wanted to get rid of the Sega Saturn and move on to the Dreamcast.
Yeah.
So I can see why it's rare, and it's a Sonic Team game, so that didn't get it wasn't popular. Even Knights, in my opinion, is overpriced for what it was when it came out. Like, it was everywhere. I remember everybody had that game, or anybody that played a Saturn played Knights, in my opinion, at least. Yeah.
Do you think they should re-release the game?
Yes. Yeah, I know you said that you like it, that it's a Sega Saturn exclusive.
Right.
But I would love to see Sonic Team, not modern Sonic Team, but, get some of the older people and, like, I don't know, rethink the game. Not rethink just the controls, right? Like, I want to see what it would feel like, with a joystick and just more modern.
Yeah.
And maybe emphasize more on speed and fix the draw distance and little things like that I had issues with. Mm-hmm. And then maybe have, like, a retro mode where it goes back to what it was before. That would be pretty cool.
I could see M2 doing that, though I feel like it would be a very big project for them. They haven't really done something on this scale, but
for sure,
I feel like once Sega Ages wraps, they should really start focusing on bigger titles like Revenge of Death Adder, Burning Rangers, Panzer Dragoon Saga, like games that have not received re-releases since their original release, that are super rare, people haven't played them, and call it some, like, give it a new collection name, like Sega Elite or something,
Do we need another Sega Classic name? Like, we have so many, like Genesis Classic. What was the other one? Like the
Sega Heritage.
Heritage. There you go.
Yeah.
It's just like, I'm like, dude, just keep one name. Then it's like Sega Forever now on mobile, so it's like it's just going and going.
That's
true. I agree with you. I think there's a lot of big games. It's kind of interesting that Sega Ages on the Nintendo Switch has stayed so underground. Like 2 Puyo Puyo games, 2 Thunder Force games.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Where's all the other ones that like were popular in America at least?
That's a very good point.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I'm not saying the Burning Rangers was popular in America, but there's other games on the Genesis that were really popular here that hasn't even been announced for Sega Ages, so it's interesting.
That's true. Yeah, and I mean, I was just going to say, since release, so I wanted to go into the appearances. You ready for that?
Very ready.
Okay. So Burning Rangers, like most Sonic Team games, it has had like minor cameos and appearances in future Sonic Team games. Maybe not as much as some other ones, but there was a featured, it was on Samba de Amigo, one of the songs was, that you could play with the maracas. Most notably, Phantasy Star Online had a downloadable mission that took a lot of cues from Burning Rangers, which I really think was a tip of the hat to the visual style that the two shared. And then I think most recently the big one was All Stars Racing Transformed having a Burning Rangers track. And so what's your favorite appearance out of these?
I mean, Phantasy Star Online, the downloadable mission, mostly because of the journey to get the downloadable stuff. Because, I remember the first thing when somebody told me, there's DLC online for these games that you have. First thing I did was, I grabbed my Sonic Adventure disc, I grabbed my Phantasy Star, and I grabbed all the games I had, and I was just, all right, figuring out which ones I could download. And then I started figuring out you could download saves and stuff. That changed everything.
Yeah.
It was so nice. That's why, I don't know, it's just so crazy that, Nintendo's, they have protections on saves and stuff. So I really liked it. It was like Wild West back then on, downloading tags, just the idea of downloading missions on Phantasy Star Online, because I was obsessed with the game, led me to this world of modifying your game. And that was, my first experience into modding, I guess, and downloading and custom tags and stuff like that. Yeah, so that's why I like it the most, mostly because of the journey, right?
That's really cool. Yeah, I would have picked the Phantasy Star Online DLC too, but for I guess reason most people would, where it's it's free additional content. Though I was a sucker for any Easter eggs, Sonic Team things. So I loved my mag was the Choo Choo mag, the Choo Choo Rocket mag. Remember the mouse?
Yeah.
And he would float on your shoulder. And then I think there was a Kapu Kapu one as well. And I remember there were Burning Knuckles, and I don't remember if that was something that you received with the completing the PSO quest. I'm not sure. But it was really fun at the time because, again, for me, it was revisiting Burning Rangers. And for other people, it might be a little taste of a game they've never played. And it was cool. It was free, too. All of the Dreamcast DLC was free, which
I never seen anything that they charged for. That's actually another interesting point that you make, right? It was all free. Online access was free, so Wild West.
I mean, version 2 had the you did have to pay, but it was so cheap. It was nothing.
$5. It's a couple bucks, I think. That's what it was. It was $1.99.
Yeah, really nothing. People complain too. People complain now. Imagine being you get to play online for $2 a month. Oh boy. Yeah. Easier times, better times. And to wrap things up, talking about Burning Rangers, since the game's release, Sonic Team went back to mainly Sonic titles. They had Sonic Adventure, Sonic Adventure 2. However, we did see stuff like Phantasy Star Online and Billy Hatcher. And those released, and then Oshima and Naka left the company. And it really was the end of an era for Sonic Team. I know Iizuka was still there, but you look at, Sonic the Hedgehog 1 all the way through to Rise Star and the Saturn stuff, and those weird games like Billy Hatcher. And I really felt like there was still this spirit of Sonic Team alive. And things really changed once they left after, I guess, 06, right? During 06 was kind of the time when things just fell apart for the team.
Yeah, it's so crazy though, because it was a combination of a lot of things, developing in HD for the first time, developing on the 360 the first time, and then having the cell processor on the PS3, and then it's crazy. And they're trying to reboot Sonic at the same time.
Yeah, and
crazy
so I'd ask, what impact do you think Burning Rangers had on Sonic Team games after release? And in the notes, I did put a few hints.
Well, I didn't even look at the notes on this part, but obviously Phantasy Star Online, I said that in the beginning, the way that it feels when you move around, the caving you mentioned. Even Sonic Adventure, I feel like a lot of that 3D feel, they really got their toes wet in the 3D, not just platforming and jumping and moving around, But just, the idea that they can make that kind of game. Because
Yeah.
Knights, like you said, was 1.5D. They played it safe. They're like, we know what we're good at. We'll keep it in that perspective.
Yeah.
And I think it really paid off on the Dreamcast with the extra power it had because it was easier to make 3D games on there. So, yeah, that game really made them jump. And, that's why I think Sonic Team was probably one of the best developers on the Dreamcast. Or top 3 at least. I mean, there was a lot of big boys back then.
I think another game to benefit from Burning Rangers development was Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 with the treasure hunting. I think that probably either borrowed some tech or borrowed some ideas or development processes from Burning Rangers, because especially I think with the Sonic Adventure 2 treasure hunting, it did have a very Burning Rangers vibe because there was a lot more, I don't know what I want to say, it didn't feel so random, like you weren't just like running around looking for random gems. There was more of a process to looking for them. There were better hint systems, and especially I remember Rouge the Bat had a level where she was going through these like the pyramids, and it felt like Burning Rangers because you'd go from room to room and there would be hazards. And I remember certain rooms like would turn red, and then you'd have to like fight the hazards. So, it's not overt. Like, I guess you could argue maybe that it might not have had any connection to Burning Rangers, but I really felt that. Did you see that at all?
I mean, like I told you, like I just feel like the way the camera moves and like just the little things, the way the 3D worked in them. I didn't ever meant that, but now that you mentioned it, I kind of see what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But as far as Burning Rangers as a game, man, it's an interesting thing. I feel like, do you think this is probably, I'm not going to say forgotten, because if you posted, hardcore fans will come out and they'll talk about it. I'm pretty sure this is more known than most Sega games that I love personally.
Yeah.
It's like Outrun probably, I mean, no, not Outrun. I think Outrun's more popular than this, but outside of like Ristar, I think which one do you think is the least popular game they have? Choo Choo Rocket maybe?
No, I think Choo Choo Rocket's pretty popular because of the iPhone revival with the game. But I probably would say Rub Rabbits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's more recent.
And that's more recent, and I think people even forget Sonic Team was behind that. But I'd maybe say, Rub Rabbits or Billy Hatcher, I think, is less popular, less known than Burning Rangers. And
they try to push him so much. Remember, like, every game for a while was like, Billy Hatcher has 3 tracks in Sonic All-Star Race. Like, why does he have 3 tracks? What is this?
Because the developer liked them. Like, someone on the team, like, loved Billy Hatcher. And that's all it takes.
Yeah, that's what I've noticed with Sonic Team, right? That if the people still working on the franchise are there, they start mentioning them more, which I think that's why you said the Dreamcast stuff had this Easter eggs, like in Phantasy Star Online. And now, like, Sonic Forces came out. I mean, Sonic Forces didn't even have a Burning Rangers item. Like, they had a bunch of items that were just nonsense. They could have just did a Burning Rangers shirt or something.
I know. I'm sorry. But, and then there's before. Are you ready to wrap up?
Yeah, I'm ready to wrap up.
All right. So, Burning Rangers, they had, and we didn't talk about this. I'm sure people are like screaming, why didn't you mention it? The game had an in-game email system, so you'd actually receive letters from people that you saved, including members of Sonic Team. And I thought bringing that up was a good time to move into us reading your letters about your Burning Rangers memories. The angels, the heroic angels from above who saves victims of fires. And so these are actually people from our Twitter feed. If you are a Patreon supporter, one of the perks is you get first come, first serve on memories being shared. You also get this episode 2 to 3 days in advance, but no one commented on Patreon because I put it out a little late. Sorry, guys. But let's read through these Twitter folks as we play them off. So let's say our goodbyes first, then we'll read through these. So goodbye from me.
Bye, everybody.
And let's read through them. So we have B Trizzle. He says, it's a beautiful game. I didn't get to play it until I bought it for a pretty penny at a local retro game store 3 years ago. We have Digi Valentine, who said the animated opening intro with the English version of the theme song absolutely blew me away when I first saw it as a kid. Still get goosebumps. Who dat? Still get goosebumps over it. And who else do we have here? We have Ben Pieface Miller. He says, oh, he's just being goofy. He says that time they released it as part of Sega Ages on Switch. Well, they haven't yet, so don't make up memories. And we have Jonathan Town. I also loved how you got letters from people, hey, who you saved to learn more about the story, and occasionally you rescued characters from other games or from the dev team. That's right, Clarice and Elliot were in the game. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
From Knights. Choco Burger says favorite memory was back in 2001 when I met Yuji Naka for a Sonic Adventure 2 signing event. I showed him the game and he let out an audible gasp. Obviously, he did not expect to see the game, especially the US version. He smashed it and told me to leave. No, he was impressed and signed the game's manual. It's very special to me. Aww. We have Virtuosanus. He says, I loved replaying every level with randomized layouts after you beat the game for the first time. Really unique. Who else do we have here? We have Johnny Grillo. He says, impressive graphics and music. We have Polygon Arcade. My only memory of it is spending $180 on a North American copy, LMAO, which is actually cheap. So don't complain. And to read a few more here, we have CRCA Productions. Struggling to control my character and having to take intermittent breaks to avoid permanently damaging my eyesight from staring at that awful polygonal graphics. Also laughing at the voice acting. Whatever. I don't vet these. We have someone showing off their copy here. Great game with the crazy prizes. I've been debating selling my mint copy. That's CC James, CEO, whatever. He just wants to sell it.
Hey, you gotta feed the family somehow, right?
That's true. Someone starts asking, do you carry N64 games? Yeah, I do. We have Bam Mangaka, and they say they never played it. They'd love to, though. And who's the last person going to be? They have... Okay, so Phantamos V says, Burning Rangers, to the brand new sky we dive. Burning Rangers, wings we have of shining white. Burning Rangers, aquamarine colored sky. Fly high with grace and pride. So, that's it. We'll see you next time on Second Talk.
Bye.
Bye again.
Risking their own lives. Only one thing we know, they always with us fighting for danger. They will never let you down. Don't you lose your hopes now. They will wipe out fly without fear, and they'll light up our future. Don't worry, just believe they will be with you. Hey.
The Rangers have nothing to hide, so as they fight, they stand side by side. For what's right, attack and win pride, protecting the people from all sorts of evil. Trouble and those who do wrong, so violate and get your back on. You ask what's this, is it justice? Folks who save lives inside this crisis. Toughness, which is a tight risk, combos, blows down for my miss. Since the team never paid a set to handle theirs, then proceed to step to the next stage and to a next phase. Giving nightmares like West Graves, so violators, you best make way, cause the Burning Rangers is here to stay.
Don't give up. Don't say you wanna cry. Don't forget your side.